of the Gambia. The items were later presented to the British Ambassador David Molly to the hospital. The chairman, board of directors of the Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital, after receiving the equipment, expressed their satisfaction and hailed the donors for their intervention.
This is a great day for the hospital. I have always said to my colleagues in the board and to everybody else, and we want this word to go out, that the health is the business of everybody. So I thank you all for these wonderful items, which will go a long way to complement the efforts of the government to ensure that we have what it takes to run a hospital like this.
Medical equipment are very crucial to the service being delivered by health facilities. Given their indispensable nature, this donation will only augur well for the healthcare needs of the people of this country. Rohibite, Grts News.
And back to the story, at the top of the news, deputies have finally adopted the 2013 Domestic Violence Bill, but not after a thorough scrutiny by members. The bill was laid before deputies by the Vice President and Minister of Women's Affairs, Aja Dr. Asitunjai Sedi. Babukar Kamara reports.
They assemble as distinctive advocates of development, invigorating their call for enactment of the 2013 Domestic Violence Bill, having undergone a vigorous scrutiny amid a variety of views.
The main purpose of the bill is to combat domestic violence, provide as well protection for victims of domestic violence, particularly women and children, as well as to harmonize the provisions of UNCIDOR in national legislation. The bill will also ensure that the Gambia not only fulfills its international commitments on the promotion of gender equality and women's empowerment, but also take up appropriate measures at the national level on advancing and enhancing women's status, particularly their legal rights.
The provisions in the bill is what we are going to look at when this House convenes into a committee. So I want to call on members of this assembly to look at the provisions critically so as to avoid excessive penalties.
Even the bill is not controversial, but the bill is talking of controversial issues.
Their increasing presence filling the public gallery as women advocates, researchers, stakeholders and legislators is characterized with the knack to deter any form of violence against both sexes, yet yanking concerns of deputies on the women empowerment process. Arguments evoke around unclarity in protection, gender imbalances, and interpretation of the bill's content.
No, what we are saying is, if it is a criminal offense, we will decriminalize it. That cannot. We don't want to put a rug between those type of guys.
I want to ask you, even a girlfriend should not take you to court for that, much more a wife.
As deputies adopt the bill, it is hoped there will be a wide sensitization campaign on the new domestic violence bill for a more efficacy on its understanding and application. Proceedings were graced by the minister responsible for National Assembly matters, Honorable Balagaba Jahumpa. Babukar Kamara, GRTS.
That report by Babukar Kamara takes us to our first break. We'll be back with news from outside the Gambia. Welcome back. Reports coming out of the South Sudanese capital of Juba say at least 66 people have been killed following violent clashes between rival groups loyal to current President Salva Kiir and his former Vice President Riek Machar. President Kiir accused his former Vice President of attempting a coup d'etat. Juba has been under a complete lockdown as rival soldiers slug it out in the streets and a curfew has been instituted. We have details in this report.
clashes over the past 2 days in the South Sudanese capital, Juba. A curfew was decreed as fierce battles raged between troops loyal to the president and rival soldiers. This latest fighting is linked to the political crisis between rival factions within the ruling party. Former Vice President Riek Machar was forced out along with all of the government ministers last July. Wearing a military uniform, President Salva Kiir accused Machar of trying to lead a coup d'etat.
At the SPLA General Headquarters near Juba University by a group of soldiers allied to the former Vice President Dr. Riek Machar Singh and his group.
The gunfire resumed in the early hours of Tuesday as terrified residents attempted to flee the city and go to United Nations camps. Many wounded poured into health centers that could not handle the influx.
Many people started running away to get away from the fighting. Some were killed. A woman who was carrying a baby on her back was hit.
Machar leads a dissident group within the ruling party and has been seen as the main challenger to Kiir. The rivals hail from different ethnic groups and fought on different sides during Sudan's civil war. Some people are accusing Salva Kiir of acting like a dictator.
And in West Africa, Guinea-Conakry to be specific, authorities in the city of Kankan have suspended 3 gendarme officers after riot police clashed with residents of the city. The latest wave of violence erupted after a young footballer allegedly died in police custody. At least 2 rioters and a member of the gendarme died in the clashes. We have details in the CFI report.
The young people were angry. There were clashes with the police. 700 kilometers from Conakry, the Guinean city of Cancan has been the scene of violence. Young people took to the streets when a local football player was found dead after spending the night in a police station. We came here to defend the youth of Cancan. They should punish the police and send them far away from us. The calls for calm by the General and Chief of Staff in Guinea were ignored. Then school children joined the demonstrators. Public buildings were invaded, some looted. The governor of the region called for an investigation to see if the death of the football player was the fault of the police. We are managing this crisis. We hope to bring people back to a calm state. We are as shocked as the young people. We don't like to see this, somebody dying because of regrettable acts. A gendarme and 2 demonstrators were killed in the clashes and 10 people were injured. To calm people down, the government suspended the 3 commanders of the gendarmerie of the city.
And on to another developing story, and in Congo-Brazzaville, an attempt to arrest one of the country's leading generals has sparked off a deadly firefight in the capital. Reports say at least 20 people have been killed and 100 more were badly injured. Desperate civilians are fleeing the capital amid fear of an all-out crisis in Brazzaville. Details in this report.
Returned the Republic of Congo's capital Brazzaville on Tuesday, 24 hours after a gun battle erupted in the city. The shootout sparked panic among residents. And on Monday, people were seen fleeing the downtown area where the violence occurred.
They're only killing and killing. They're shooting. It's hell. I wanted to advance to the city center, but everything was blocked off. There was a lot of gunfire. I had to get away. I was afraid the soldiers would think I was with the other side. It's tough for the country. We want peace.
The gunfire began when soldiers came to arrest Colonel Marcel Suru, and around 100 of his supporters clashed with the Congolese army. The firefight lasted an hour and 22 people were killed. The Congolese authorities blame Colonel Marcel Suru for Monday's violence. Suru is a former top government security advisor who was sentenced to 5 years forced labor 3 months ago. He was charged over a deadly accidental blast that had occurred at a munitions depot in the Mpila neighborhood on March 4th, 2012. Suru has been in bitter disagreement with President Sassou Nguesso since September, and he vigorously opposes the police searching of his home. The search warrant was issued by the Army High Command, which accuses his supporters of having attacked patrolling security forces on Sunday night.
And before we end this edition of the news, a quick reminder of our headlines. Deputies have adopted the 2013 Domestic Violence Bill, which was laid before members by the Vice President and Minister of Women's Affairs, Dr. Aissatou Njie Seydi. Authorities in South Sudan have instituted